Are you absolutely sure that the next time you board a plane, you won't be the one suddenly pulled aside, whispered about, and escorted off the aircraft while confused passengers watch in silence? Because here's the uncomfortable truth most airlines will never say out loud. Getting removed from flights is happening more than ever before, and it's often not about what you did in that exact moment, but about how the system quietly judged you long before the plane door even closed. And I'm telling you this as a professional travel planner, an airport security insider, and someone who has seen how airline decisions are really made behind the scenes. Not the polished version they show in ads, but the messy, human, sometimes unfair reality. And it starts earlier than you think, sometimes days before your flight, sometimes the second you book your ticket. Because airlines today are under extreme pressure, more pressure than at any time in aviation history. Flights are fuller, margins are tighter, crews are exhausted, security protocols are more sensitive, and technology is watching everything. Not in a sci-fi way, but in a quiet, invisible way, tracking patterns, behaviors, booking habits, past disruptions, even tone of voice at the gate. And when something feels even slightly off, the easiest solution for an airline is not to debate it, not to explain it, but to remove the passenger. Quietly, efficiently, and with as little confrontation as possible. And yes, that could be you, even if you think you're a calm, respectful traveler, because removals today are less about extreme behavior and more about risk management, perception, and timing. Imagine this scenario. You arrive late to the gate, slightly out of breath. You argue just a little about overhead bin space, your bag doesn't quite fit, a flight attendant notes your frustration, nothing major, right? But behind the scenes, that note becomes a data point. Then add another small thing. Maybe you booked a last-minute one-way ticket, maybe you switched seats, maybe you questioned a safety instruction, not aggressively, just casually. All harmless on their own, but airlines don't look at moments anymore, they look at patterns. And patterns are what get people removed. Not tantrums, not viral video meltdowns, but tiny frictions that add up. And here's what most passengers never realize. Once a crew member feels uneasy, even slightly, the power shifts instantly. Federal aviation rules give flight crews enormous authority. If a captain believes a passenger could become disruptive, they don't need proof, they don't need witnesses, they don't need a second chance. Belief is enough. And once that decision is made, reversing it is nearly impossible, especially on a full flight where delays cost airlines thousands of dollars per minute. And this is why removals are increasing, because airlines would rather remove one passenger than risk a delay, a diversion, or a safety report. And from a cold operational standpoint, it makes sense, but from a passenger perspective, it feels sudden, humiliating, and unfair. And often it is, but that's not the whole story. Another reason removals are rising is passenger stress. Travelers today are more anxious than ever. Flights are packed, legroom is tighter, rules change constantly. One week it's fine to board with a battery pack, the next week it's questioned. Carry-on rules differ by airline. Gate agents are overwhelmed, passengers feel unheard, and that emotional pressure leaks out in subtle ways. Sighs, eye-rolling, sarcasm, raised eyebrows. And while you may think that's nothing, airport staff are trained to notice these micro-signals, not because they're evil, but because aviation safety is built on anticipating problems before they explode. And sometimes anticipation goes too far. Sometimes it catches the wrong person, and sometimes it removes someone who never intended any harm at all. And then there's technology, the silent judge. Advanced passenger screening systems flag inconsistencies, not crimes, inconsistencies. Booking behavior that doesn't match typical travel patterns, frequent changes, mismatched personal data, unusual routing, even traveling during peak disruption periods. And while these flags don't automatically get you removed, they put you under a brighter light, meaning every interaction you have is watched more closely. Your tone matters more, your compliance matters more, your patience matters more. And most people don't know they're under that light, so they act normally, which unfortunately isn't always enough anymore, especially when crews are trained to err on the side of caution, and caution today means removal. And let's talk about something no one likes to admit. Airlines are also protecting their staff. Flight attendants are facing more abuse than ever, verbal, emotional, sometimes physical, and airlines have adopted a zero-tolerance mindset. But zero tolerance doesn't just apply to obvious aggression, it applies to perceived escalation. If a crew member feels uncomfortable, even if you think you're just being assertive, the system backs them, always. And that support is necessary for safety, but it also means passengers have less room for emotional expression than ever before. Even justified frustration can be interpreted as potential risk. And here's the part that really shocks people. You don't need to break a rule to be removed. You just need to be seen as someone who might break one later. And that's why removals feel random, because from the outside, they are, but from the inside, they're risk calculations made in seconds. And those calculations are influenced by everything from your body language, to the mood of the crew, to how full the flight is, to whether the airline is already dealing with delays, weather issues, or crew time limits. And when pressure is high, tolerance is low. Always. And now, let me tell you something from my years as a travel planner. Most removals could be avoided, not by being invisible, but by being predictably calm, boring even. Airlines love boring passengers, the ones who follow instructions quickly, keep conversations short, don't push boundaries, don't test rules. Because predictability equals safety in aviation, and unpredictability, even harmless unpredictability, triggers caution. And that's why frequent travelers often get removed less, not because they're special, but because they understand the unspoken rules. They know when to stop talking, when to comply without debate, when to save complaints after the flight instead of during boarding. And this is where many people go wrong. They choose the wrong moment to stand their ground. Airports are not courts, planes are not debate halls, and fairness is not decided at 35,000 feet. It's decided later through customer service channels, legal avenues, and refunds. But in the moment, compliance is king, and resistance, even polite resistance, can cost you your seat. And yes, that reality feels harsh, but ignoring it won't protect you. Understanding it might, because removals are not slowing down, they're increasing. As flights get fuller, rules get stricter, and tolerance gets thinner. And the passengers most at risk are not the loud ones you see online, it's the average traveler who doesn't realize the environment has changed, who thinks common sense still applies the same way it did 10 years ago. It doesn't. Aviation today runs on prevention, not reaction. And prevention often means removing the unknown variable. And that variable can be you if you're tired, stressed, rushed, or simply unaware of how closely you're being observed. So what can you actually do to protect yourself? Here's the part that matters. First, control your tone before you control your words. Staff react more to how you speak than what you say. Second, avoid confrontation during boarding and taxiing. Those are the highest stress moments for crews. Third, comply first, complain later. Always. Fourth, keep interactions short and respectful. No jokes about safety, no sarcasm, no testing boundaries. Fifth, understand that being right doesn't matter in the moment. Being calm does. And finally, remember this. Airlines don't remove passengers because they want to. They remove them because the system rewards caution over compassion. And until that changes, your best defense is awareness, patience, and strategic calm. So my suggestion for you, especially if you're flying more often or traveling during busy seasons, is simple but powerful. Treat every airport interaction as if it's being quietly evaluated, not because you're guilty, but because the system assumes nothing. Stay predictable, stay calm, save your energy, and you dramatically reduce the chances of becoming the next confused passenger walking back up the jet bridge while everyone else watches in silence.